The words hung in the air like a death sentence disguised as salvation. "The baby is yours, I promise." "Then you have nothing to worry about," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside my chest. She smiled, that practiced hollow smile I'd grown to recognize over the past few months. The smile that said she thought she was still in control. She had no idea what was coming. It started small, the way destruction always does. A laugh from the bedroom while she talked on the phone. "That would ruin everything," I heard her say, followed by giggles that used to be reserved for me. Phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Text messages she'd hide by flipping her phone face down, as if the simple action could erase whatever secrets lived in that glowing screen. "Who was that?" I'd ask. "Oh, just work stuff," she'd reply, already moving away from me. Work stuff, it was always work stuff these days. Her boss, Marcus, had been mentioned more and more frequently in our conversations. Marcus said this. Marcus thinks that. Marcus suggested we try this new restaurant, which, coincidentally, was where she'd been going for her girls' nights out. I'm not a fool. I've been married to Sarah for 4 years, and I know when something's wrong. But knowing and proving are two different beasts entirely. Sarah had started working later, claiming new projects and urgent deadlines. She'd come home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine, her lipstick slightly smudged, her excuses getting more elaborate. Marcus needed help with the quarterly reports, she'd say. Always Marcus. Always work. Always lies wrapped in just enough truth to sound believable. The pregnancy announcement came on a Tuesday. Sarah had been unusually quiet for days, and I'd assumed it was more of the same distance that had been growing between us. Then she sat me down after dinner, her hands shaking as she held the little plastic test. "I'm pregnant," she said, and for a moment, just one beautiful, naive moment, I felt joy. Then I did the math. The timeline was suspicious. We'd been intimate so rarely in recent months that I could count the occasions on one hand. But Marcus had been around a lot more. "How far along?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "About 10 weeks, she replied, not meeting my eyes. 10 weeks. Right around the time her behavior had shifted completely. Right around the time work had become her second home. That's when the doubt crept in, dark and poisonous, settling in my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. The breakthrough came by accident, the way the best revelations always do. Sarah had been in the shower, and I was cleaning up after dinner when I noticed our family iPad. The screen lit up with a text preview. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place?" My blood turned to ice. I'd forgotten, completely forgotten, that when we'd first set up the iPad, Sarah had signed into her iCloud account to sync photos, which meant her messages were syncing too. My hands shook as I opened the Messages app, and there it was, months of evidence laid out like a roadmap of betrayal. Marcus Chen, her boss. The man she'd been telling me was just a colleague and completely professional. The messages went back 4 months. 4 months of planning secret meetings, sharing intimate jokes, and slowly escalating from friendly workplace banter to something that made my stomach turn. Sarah, had such a good time tonight, thank you for listening. Marcus, you deserve so much better than what you're getting at home. Sarah, I feel guilty sometimes, but then I remember how alive you make me feel. Marcus, don't feel guilty for being happy. You have the right to be with someone who appreciates you. And then buried in the more recent messages, the confirmation I'd been dreading. Sarah, I'm scared. What if he finds out about the baby? Marcus, he won't. You said he's been distant anyway. He'll probably be relieved to think it's his. Sarah, what if he wants a paternity test? Marcus, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But for now, just act normal. He'll never find out the baby's yours if we're careful. I spent the next 24 hours documenting everything. Screenshots of conversations, saved with timestamps. Photos of receipts I found in her purse. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to. Hotel charges from the afternoons she claimed to be in meetings. I even found her location data through the family's shared Apple account, showing her frequent visits to Marcus's apartment complex on days she said she was working late at the office. The affair had been going on for 5 months. 5 months of lies, deception, and planning. They hadn't just stumbled into this. They had orchestrated it, discussed it, laughed about how easy it was to fool me. But the most damaging evidence was yet to come. In their more recent exchanges, I discovered they'd been planning their future together. Marcus was going to leave his wife. Sarah was going to leave me. And they'd raise their child together once enough time had passed that no one would question the timeline. Marcus. Jennifer suspects something. She's been asking questions about my schedule. Sarah. Maybe it's time to tell her. We can't keep this up forever. Marcus. Let's wait until after the baby's born. It'll be easier to explain then. Sarah. What about David? He's already suspicious. Marcus. David's a pushover. He'll believe whatever you tell him. Just keep playing the loving wife for a few more months. David's a pushover. I stared at those words for a long time, feeling something crystallize inside me. They weren't just betraying me. They were laughing at me. In their minds, I was the pathetic, clueless husband who was too stupid to see what was happening right under his nose. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. I'd always been good with details. It's what made me successful in my accounting job. But now I channeled that same methodical precision into something else entirely. First, I researched Marcus Chen. Married to Jennifer Chen for 8 years. 2 kids, Emma, age 6, and Michael, age 4. He worked as regional sales manager at Sarah's company, pulling down a 6-figure salary. From his social media, he looked like the perfect family man. Little league games, family vacations, anniversary dinners with his wife. Jennifer worked part-time as a nurse at the local hospital. Her Facebook was full of family photos and proud mom moments. She had no idea that her husband was planning to destroy their family for a woman he'd knocked up at the office. Next, I researched the company policies. Marcus, as Sarah's direct supervisor, was violating multiple workplace conduct rules. The company had a strict anti-fraternization policy, especially between managers and their direct reports. The affair wasn't just a personal betrayal, it was grounds for immediate termination and possible legal action. Then I planned my approach. I couldn't just dump this information randomly and hope for the best. It had to be strategic, coordinated, and devastating. They'd been planning this for months. I could spend a few days making sure their entire world collapsed at once. The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. I wasn't going to confront them directly, not yet. Instead, I was going to let them destroy themselves by exposing their lies to the people who mattered most. Jennifer Chen's schedule was surprisingly easy to figure out. She posted regularly on social media about her shifts at the hospital, her kids' activities, and her daily routines. Wednesday was her day off, when she usually ran errands while the kids were at school. I prepared a manila envelope with printed copies of everything: the text messages, the location data, the hotel receipts, even screenshots of Marcus's lies about working late when he was actually at restaurants with my wife. The cover letter was simple. Dear Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry to be the bearer of difficult news, but I believe you have the right to know what your husband has been doing behind your back. The enclosed evidence speaks for itself. I've also forwarded copies to your husband's HR department. I wish you and your children all the best during what I know will be a difficult time. A concerned party? For HR, I prepared a more formal complaint, complete with policy violations, documentation, and a clear timeline showing how long the inappropriate relationship had been ongoing. I sent it from an anonymous email account, but made sure to include enough verifiable information that they'd have to take it seriously. The timing had to be perfect. Wednesday morning, Jennifer would find the envelope when she checked her mail. The HR complaint would hit their inboxes at exactly the same time, giving them no chance to coordinate their stories or cover their tracks. By the time Sarah woke up on Wednesday, her entire world would be burning. But I wasn't done yet. Wednesday morning, I woke up before Sarah, as I had every day for the past week. She was still sleeping peacefully, one hand resting on her barely visible bump, completely unaware that her life was about to implode. I made coffee, read the news, and went to work as if it were any other day. At 9:47 a.m., I got the first sign that my plan was working. Sarah's phone, still synced to the iPad, lit up with a frantic call from Marcus. The text started immediately after. Marcus. Jennifer knows. She knows everything. Sarah. What do you mean she knows? How? Marcus. Someone sent her copies of our messages. All of them, Sarah, the pregnancy, the hotel, everything. Sarah. Who would do that? How did they get our messages? Marcus. I don't know, but HR just called me into a meeting. This is bad. Really bad. I watched the panic unfold in real time through their synced messages. It was beautiful in its completeness. The sudden realization that their secret world had been exposed, the desperate scrambling to figure out how it had happened, the dawning understanding that their carefully constructed lies were crumbling. By noon, Marcus had been suspended pending investigation. By 2 p.m., the entire office knew about the affair. By evening, his wife had changed the locks, and his belongings were in garbage bags on the front lawn. Sarah came home that evening looking shell-shocked. She'd clearly heard about Marcus's situation at work, but she was still playing innocent. "You'll never believe what happened at work today," she said, setting down her purse with shaking hands. "What happened?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "Marcus got suspended. Someone reported him to HR for inappropriate conduct with an employee." "That's terrible," I said, my voice perfectly neutral. "Any idea who he was involved with?" She hesitated just long enough to confirm my suspicions. No idea. It's just shocking, you know? He seemed like such a family man." "Well," I said, finally looking up at her, "I guess we never really know people as well as we think we do." She nodded, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She was wondering if she was safe, if her name would come up in the investigation, if our marriage was about to become collateral damage in Marcus's downfall. She had no idea that our marriage had already been dead for months. She'd killed it herself, one lie at a time. Thursday brought fresh chaos. Marcus had been officially terminated, his affair now common knowledge throughout the company. Sarah came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck. "They fired him," she said, slumping into a chair at our kitchen table. "That's what happens when you violate company policy," I replied, still maintaining my facade of ignorance. "It seems extreme, though. I mean, everyone makes mistakes." "Sleeping with your subordinate isn't a mistake, Sarah. It's a choice. A series of choices, actually." She flinched at my tone, but I pressed on. "I mean, think about it. He had to choose to pursue someone who worked under him. He had to choose to risk his marriage, his career, everything he'd built. And the woman involved, she had to make the same choices. She had to decide that whatever she was getting from him was worth destroying 2 marriages and betraying everyone who trusted her." Sarah's face had gone pale. "David, why are you talking like this?" "Like what?" Like you know something." I set down my coffee mug and looked at her directly. "What would I know, Sarah? You've told me everything, right? You promised I had nothing to worry about." The words hung between us like a blade. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again, her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach. "Of course," she whispered. "Of course you have nothing to worry about." But her voice cracked as she said it, and we both knew the game was almost over. Friday morning, I made my final move. Sarah had left early for work, probably to do damage control and figure out how much trouble she was in. I used the time to prepare what I privately thought of as the reveal. On our kitchen counter, I placed a single item, a paternity test kit, still in its packaging. Underneath it, I left a note. "Since you have nothing to worry about, this should be easy to resolve. Let's schedule the test for next week." Then I went to work and waited. The explosion came at 2:17 p.m. My phone rang with Sarah's number, and when I answered, I could hear she was crying. "David, what is this? Why would you buy a paternity test?" "Because I want to be sure," I said simply. "You said the baby is mine, right? So prove it." "I can't believe you don't trust me." "Can't you?" Silence stretched between us across the phone line. Finally, she spoke again, her voice small and defeated. "Can we talk about this when you get home?" "Sure," I said, "we can talk." But talking wasn't what I had in mind. I came home that evening to find Sarah sitting at our kitchen table, the DNA test kit in front of her like a piece of evidence at a crime scene. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hands shaking as she turned the box over and over. "We need to talk," she said without looking up. "Yes," I agreed, sitting down across from her. "We do." She took a shuddering breath. "I know you've been suspicious. I know I've been distant lately. But David, I need you to know that I love you. I love our life together." "Our life?" I asked quietly. "Or the life you've been living behind my back?" Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots I'd been collecting. Slowly, deliberately, I slid it across the table to her. "How did you—" she whispered. "The family iPad," I said. "Your messages have been syncing for months. I've seen everything, Sarah. Every lie, every plan, every laugh you've had at my expense." "David, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been sleeping with your boss for 5 months? How you got pregnant with his child and decided to trick me into raising it? How you and he called me a pushover who would believe whatever you told me?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she choked out. "How was it supposed to happen, Sarah? Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Or were you going to let me raise another man's child while you continued your affair behind my back?" "We were going to leave, both of us. We were going to get divorced and be together." "When? After you'd strung me along for how long? After you'd taken half of everything I've worked for? After you'd let me bond with a child that isn't mine?" She couldn't answer. The truth was written all over her face. They'd planned to use me as long as it was convenient, then discard me when they were ready to start their new life together. "Marcus is finished," I continued, my voice growing harder. "His wife left him. He's lost his job, his house, his kids. His entire life is destroyed. And you know what? He deserves every bit of it." "David, please." "No." I stood up, looking down at her. "I'm done listening to your lies. I'm done pretending that any of this is salvageable. You made your choice months ago when you decided to betray our marriage. Now you get to live with the consequences." "You want to know the really pathetic part?" I continued, pacing around our kitchen like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "I would have forgiven an affair if you'd come to me months ago and said you'd made a mistake, that you were unhappy, that you wanted to work on our marriage. I would have tried. I loved you that much." Sarah's sobs grew louder, but I wasn't finished. "But this? This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated. You and Marcus sat around planning how to fool me. You laughed about how easy it would be to manipulate me. You decided I was too stupid and too weak to figure out what was happening." I stopped pacing and looked directly at her. "You were wrong. David, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "Yes, you did. Every text message, every lie, every time you came home to me after being with him, you meant all of it. You chose all of it." I sat back down, leaning forward across the table. "Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, you're going to move out of this house. You can go stay with your sister, or your parents, or hell, go live with Marcus in whatever crappy apartment he can afford now that his wife is taking him for everything he's worth." "David," I'm not finished. My voice cut through her protests like ice. "You're going to file for divorce, and you're going to make it easy. No fighting over assets, no dragging this out, no trying to claim you deserve half of what I've built while you were busy destroying our marriage. What about the baby? What about it? It's not mine. We both know it, and now everyone else will know it too. You can explain to your child someday why their father isn't in their life, assuming Marcus doesn't disappear completely once the reality of single parenthood sets in." She was crying so hard now that she could barely breathe, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no lingering love. She'd killed all of that with her betrayal. "You destroyed 2 marriages, Sarah. You destroyed 2 families. Marcus's kids are going to grow up wondering why their daddy left them. His wife is going to have to rebuild her entire life from scratch. And for what? For a few months of excitement? For the thrill of sneaking around behind everyone's back?" "It wasn't like that," she whispered. "Yes, it was exactly like that, And now you get to live with what you've done. I stood up again, looking down at the woman I'd once promised to love for better or worse. The worse had come, and it had destroyed everything. I want you gone by tomorrow night. Take whatever you need, leave the rest. I'll have divorce papers drawn up next week. The divorce hearing was scheduled for a Thursday in November. Sarah walked into that courtroom thinking she still had cards to play, accompanied by her lawyer who clearly hadn't been briefed on how much evidence I possessed. When the judge called our case, Sarah's lawyer stood confidently. Your Honor, my client seeks equitable division of marital assets, including the family home, savings, and spousal support during her pregnancy. I stood slowly. Your Honor, I have evidence that Mrs. Harrison engaged in an extramarital affair for 5 months, resulting in a pregnancy that isn't mine. What followed was 45 minutes of systematic destruction. Every text message, every hotel receipt, every lie laid bare. The judge's expression grew colder with each piece of evidence. Sarah's lawyer requested a recess. In the hallway, I heard Sarah's panic. You said this would be simple. You said he couldn't prove anything. Mrs. Harrison, you never told me about the extent of this affair. You're not getting the house or spousal support. You're lucky to keep your personal belongings. The judge's ruling was swift. Given the evidence of adultery, Mrs. Harrison forfeits claim to marital assets. The house, savings, and assets remain with Mr. Harrison. Divorce granted. Sarah stood so fast her chair toppled. This isn't fair. I don't deserve to lose everything. Mrs. Harrison, the judge replied coldly, you made choices. These are the consequences. Marcus's destruction was even more spectacular. Jennifer Chen called me 2 weeks after the HR complaint. Mr. Harrison, I wanted to thank you. Marcus has been using company funds for hotel rooms with your wife. What started as an affair became embezzlement. He's facing 3 years in prison. What about you and the kids? Moving to California. The kids are devastated but young enough to recover. I'm angry but relieved. Marcus showed up at my office 3 weeks later, looking desperate in an ill-fitting suit. David, you destroyed my entire life. My kids won't talk to me. I'm facing prison. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided to sleep with your subordinate and steal company money to fund it. Sarah loves me. What we had was real. Where is she now, Marcus? Helping with your legal bills? Standing by you? His face fell. She didn't choose you. She used you just like she used me. I'm going to lose everything. Good. Maybe the next woman will be smart enough to avoid married embezzlers. Security escorted him out. 6 months later, he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. His wife never returned from California,